Good morning, this is your Stats Sensei, Mr. Spensei, and we're going to go over the bias multiple choice. So, a researcher is conducting a survey to understand the commuting habits of employees in a large corporation. They only include responses from employees who work in the main office, neglecting those who work from home. So we have the main office, but not those poor saps working at home. What type of bias is this? Well, we have a bad sample, so it's selection bias, but it's undercoverage bias because we left off part of the population. When you leave out part of the population, it's undercoverage. So this is undercoverage because we left out the part of the population who work at home. All right. The next one. A local radio station asks listeners to call in and express their opinions. So they're calling in. They weren't randomly selected. All right. If they're not randomly selected, then it's voluntary response bias. All right. You have to randomly select them. They self-selected. They were not selected, they selected themselves. In a survey about smoking habits, respondents might underreport their smoking frequency due to social desirability. If you are lying or misrepresenting it in your response, it's because of response bias. This was a sensitive question. I don't want to admit to smoking 6 packs a day. A researcher studied the average income of a city's residents, only surveys people living in a wealthy neighborhood. If I'm only doing a wealthy neighborhood, this is going to be selection bias, and it leads to undercoverage because we did not cover those in poorer neighborhoods or middle class neighborhoods, but that's selection bias, bad design. We missed part of the population. Selection bias will always miss part of the population and always result in undercoverage bias. So the following graphs show the sampling distributions for two different point estimators, R and W. So we have R right here, we have W right here. And if we notice, this population parameter is not centered up on our sample. This one is. If it's not centered, then this is biased. And this is not biased. When it's centered, we're saying, hey, it's centered up. It's equal. It's equal, then it's not biased. This is biased. So which of the following statements is true? Both R and W are biased. That's false. Both are unbiased. Both R and W are biased. That's false. R is biased. W is unbiased. That is true. So C is our correct response to that answer. All right, moving on to the next. A survey is mailed to 1,000 households, but only 200 responses are received. Oh, they didn't respond. That means non-response. You don't respond, we have non-response. During a face-to-face interview about eating habits, participants might over-report their consumption of healthy foods to please the interviewer. Oh, I feel peer pressure. All right, it's a sensitive question. Sensitive question, response bias. Question 8, a survey about job satisfaction is conducted in a company, but only employees from the marketing department are surveyed. So we only have one group. We only have one group. We have undercoverage bias or selection bias. Either one. Because selection bias means we have a bad sample, and that bad sample will result in undercoverage. A health study sends out a survey to thousands of participants, but only receives a 30% response. All right, that's non-response. Not everybody, we didn't have a large response. Most did not respond. The following graph shows the sampling distributions for two different point estimators. So we have point X and we have point Y. Well, when I look at it, this is centered and this is centered. So these are both unbiased. And that happens to be our first answer choice. Both X and Y are unbiased. All right, I appreciate you watching. We're going to move on to the next video. In the next one, we will talk about sampling variability or sample error. Look forward to seeing you. Thanks for watching.